In lieu of starting late, because I know that there's a full agenda planned for today for Wayne's activities, and there are 3 additional workshops after us, I'd like to start if that's okay with everybody. The session that you're sitting in now is Opportunities for Doing Business with Maryland's Regulated Public Utilities. And I'd like to welcome all of you to the session. I'm Toby Stanislaw. I work for Potomac Edison, which is a FIRST energy company, and I am based out of Reading, Pennsylvania. I am also a member of the Maryland Forum, which you're going to hear about this morning, and I will be moderating the session for you. And we have a panel of cross-section regulated utilities and the Public Service Commission to share with you a little bit of information about the initiative with the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that we have signed with the Public Service Commission to roll out or to enhance our supplier diversity programs that we have within our companies. And our panel today consists of Obie Linton, Director, Office External Relations of the Maryland Public Service Commission, Rhonda Min-Carini, Manager, PHI Supplier Diversity, Pepco Holdings, Laura Welsh, Manager, Supply Chain, Contract Management, Supplier Diversity for Washington Gas, Lisa DeSantis, Manager, Finance and Regulatory Affairs, Choptank Electric Cooperative, and Jay Burks, Manager, Supplier Diversity, Comcast. So we try to give you a representation across the regulated utilities of a small supplier diversity program on the Eastern Shore, a larger urban program with Pepco Holdings, Comcast and Potomac Edison are both within the state, but yet headquartered outside the state, and how our programs are run. And then Laura Welsh will talk about the gas component of the programs. So we have a full session. Our panel was prepared to talk for an hour. We've been given a half hour. So we're going to condense what we have to share with you, and then we're going to open up to questions and answers. And at 9 o'clock, if there's additional interest, we will move across the hall to an auxiliary room so that we can continue the dialogue with you. So I'd like to start and just talk about some of our morning objectives, and that's to share with you our supplier diversity programs and how we can help educate you to pursue objectives with our utilities. We're here, most of us are not buyers. We manage or influence the utilization of suppliers with our supply chain. So we're here as the facilitators to identify suppliers to bring back to our companies to put into the pipeline to provide products and services to run the infrastructures of our companies. And Obie will start off our session today talking about the MOU that was signed between 17 regulated utilities and the public utilities, and how that is helping to influence the economic growth and development for suppliers within the state. So Obie, can I turn it over to you?
Sure, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Obie Linton. I bring you greetings from the Maryland Public Service Commission and the Commissioners of the Maryland Public Service Commission. Here to talk to you very briefly today about the Supplier Diversity MOU. The agreement was signed back in 2009 by 6 different companies at the time. Currently, there are 17 companies that have signed on to the MOU, 6 of which are represented here today. It represents an opportunity to encourage business development among diverse firms, services-able veteran firms, and women-owned firms. There are utilities have all agreed to reach out and attempt to reach a 25% goal for the diverse spend on an annual basis. That is an aspirational goal. It's not a mandatory requirement like you would see with the state of Maryland as an example. It reflects all of the utility spend across sourceable spend. So it will not include things like board of director expenses, purchasing transformers, things of that sort. But the utility companies have made a very significant commitment. The Commission is very pleased that they have done so. In order to participate with this, you don't necessarily have to be a certified firm to do business with a utility company, but if you'd like to have the recognition that the MOU provides and some of the features that it provides, then you would need to be certified with any number of different firms, including the Company Association that you're working with today. Maryland has been a leader in this industry, in this area for many years now. The utility forum that you'll hear a lot more about today is one of the results, outcomes of the MOU that's come together. And so I'm very pleased that that's come about, and I'm pleased to be here today. If you have any questions, I'm certainly happy to help out with that, to answer any of them for you. A couple of things that I'd like to suggest you pay attention to. One is that each of the companies have to file an annual plan and an annual report with the Commission on an annual basis. The report will show all of the spend that they have made over the prior year. It's a public document. It's all available on the Commission's website. The annual plan tells you where the company is going to go in the future. So over the course of the next year, you're going to find out more about the activities and outreach efforts that they're going to engage in order to reach diverse firms. So both the annual report and the annual plan are available on the Commission's website. I encourage you to go there and take a look at it. It's free. You don't have to pay any money for it. You don't have to sign up for it. I'd encourage you to learn the industry. The utility industry is very different from many of the other industries out there that you may have done business with before. So it's not a place that you can just walk in and say, give me a contract, and walk out the door with one. You need to know what the utilities do. You need to know how they operate, where their service territories begin and end. The difference between the utility service territories and the zip codes. They're not the same. So you need to understand where they operate and what they do. The last thing I suggest is that you use probably one of the better cheat sheets out there, which is just the utilities own filings. All of them are public, all available online, and it gives you a very clear indication of where they're going to be handling the business and engaging in business in the future. You should today be able to tell me where these companies are going to be doing business in the future, because they've already made that information publicly available. And if you're interested in doing business with them, you should know it. The best way to get it is to go on the Commission's website, to interact with them, to read the newspapers, watch the media. You know that the company, for example, is doing a lot of work with reliability. You know that Washington Gas is always interested in making sure that there's pipeline safety. Comcast is always doing marketing efforts. These are the kinds of things that they do on a regular basis. And if you want to know more about it, you need to pay attention to what's happening in the industry and happening in their general words. They don't hide. So they make it very obvious and available. So the Commission is very pleased with this program. As I mentioned earlier, it is a national leader. There's a lot of information out there about that, and there's more to come. So I encourage you to keep your eyes open and to continue to learn the industry. Available for any questions. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you, Abby. I appreciate that. Our next speaker will be Rhonda Carini from Pepco Holdings and also chair of our Maryland Forum.
I want to talk to you today a little bit about, Opie has spoken to you about the MOU. The MOU was signed in 2000, excuse me, sorry, I apologize, I'm losing my voice. And so if I fade out, you know why. We signed the revised MOU in 2009, but that's not the extent of our commitment. We initially signed an MOU with the state of Maryland in 1991. So we're celebrating, over 20 years of the MOU. There were, after the MOU was signed, the folks that participated on the development of the MOU, which included me and Washington Gas, all of those 17 utilities that Obi was speaking of, we knew that we weren't going to get through this with all the changes that were made unless we worked together. And so we formed the Maryland Utility Forum, which meets, we're supposed to meet every other month, but there's been some conflicts daily. And we talk about issues that are common to all of us. We also share suppliers, we share our best practices, and we are all about trying to help companies decide whether or not the utility business or any of the individual utilities are good business for you. And we also, with the MOU, we also wanted to make sure that we were reporting. Obie mentioned to you the annual reports and plans, and we wanted to be sure that the commission was getting reports that they could do comparative work to see what one utility is doing against another, and that takes a lot of collaboration. We've also had some fits and starts with one of our targeted groups, the service disabled veterans, and we've been working closely with them, but there is not a certification program. If I switch back to PEPCO for a minute, we are a transmission and distribution company. All of the power that comes from a power plant that we don't have anything to do with, all of that power goes through the transmission lines into substations and steps down continuously and provides you the service. Anything in that space that you can provide, we'd like to hear about. So I met a gentleman this morning that sells structural steel. I found that interesting because we do buy structural steel. And it's not that, I would say probably 80% of our business is in the construction of material, and the rest of it would be professional services such as environmental consulting, human resource consulting, a host of, I'm trying to think of all the other areas. If you do benefit plans, we currently have more business that's auditing all of our benefits and pension, and they have been for several years. And so we're always looking for folks to provide more competition. That's another chief objective. I talked a little bit about the aspirational goal. And if you get onto the Commission's website, you'll see that we are all over the place as utilities. I think Verizon has achieved 25%. We are not even close. We're at about 9%. And the reason for that is, and Obie opened it up a little bit, is that in 2010, our procurement spend was $300 million. Our procurement spend in 2012 was over $600 million. We doubled the amount of procurement spend, but it's primarily directed at the reliability project. So we're talking about improving the switchgear, improving the breakers, putting we're putting in underground lines that used to be overhead lines in areas where there have been lots of outages, because that's what we want to do. We can make it on the power side. So the other aspect of that is you need to think about when you're comparing utilities, when you look on that website, how comes one person will do 25% and somebody else? You have to look at what is the utility doing? What are you doing? I know Laura had a rather significant construction project last year for a new operations center in Springfield, Virginia. When that was built, she took all the accolades about the diverse spend, but it's not going to happen this year. So it's just like, within your own personal life. If you buy a refrigerator, one year, you're going to buy another refrigerator. And that's the same thing the utility covers. It's, I might buy a transformer this year, not buy a transformer next year. Or, for example, I'm sure all of you are familiar with our smart meter and the build out of the smart meter system. actually, I'm going to take some credit for this. The person that's installing, the company that's installing all of those meters, and we've installed over 1 million of them, is moving on supplier. The meters can't, there is no competition. There's no real competitive market with diverse suppliers and manufacturer of meters. But we were able to locate, find, and contract with a minority for the installation. But again,
I need to,
I just-
apologize.
and all I wanna
She has
say-
a lot of information to share with you.
and you can tell I'm pretty passionate about this. But if you have any other questions, please ask me. We're going to have time afterwards. Thanks.
Well, if we can just go through, Jay, if you can just talk real quickly for a little bit about Comcast, and we'll go down to the questions.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jay Burks. I'm a Supplier Diversity Manager at Comcast. I'll be real brief and give you some real tangible action items real quick. Comcast is headquartered in Philadelphia. We do have regional offices in the Maryland area. The first thing that I wanted to communicate to you is that Comcast and NBC Universal combined with Tier 2 spend about excess of $1 billion with diverse suppliers. So that's a big spend. But the spend out of Maryland is not as great as our sole supply chain. Some of the opportunities within the Maryland area, and what I recommend is first registering on our supplier diversity website. That's the first thing with any corporation, Verizon, Comcast. Register on the corporate site, comcast.com/supplier diversity. Comcast.com/supplier diversity. Some of the opportunities I see in the Maryland area, and Obi mentioned one, and I don't think this is the proper form. Marketing, obviously, professional services, IT staffing, but primarily it's the construction, drop bury, cable, telecommunications, building out the network, sustaining the network. Those are the biggest opportunities. Also for some of our facilities, maintenance, HVAC, ventilation, electrical, and dependent upon if we own these facilities in Maryland, you need to double check on that, but janitorial services as well. I think in closing, I think the major value add is communicating the MOUs to the trade associations that you're part of. I know I used to run the state of Delaware's program, and you know the ABCs, the contractors associations, let them know that this MOU is in place and say, hey, we can help you fulfill some of these obligations, some of the partners of this MOU are responsible for. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Laura?
I too am going to make mine extremely brief, so we have time for questions. I'm going to resound and everything that everybody says there. One thing in addition is Marshall & Gass's commitment to diverse suppliers to the point where we have made it onto our corporate scorecard, so all of our employees are held accountable. We believe it is a sound business practice, and some people have talked about their diverse spend. We just finished our FY13 calculations, and I'm glad to report that of the $276 million in non-gas spend, we were able to do a little over $52 million with diverse vendors.
Lisa?
Good morning, Lisa DeSantis, Manager of Finance and Regulatory Affairs, Chop Tank Electric Cooperative. I have a way different story than my peers at the table in that we were new to the MOU in 2009. So we did not have the many years of experience to go through the outreach looking for a minority diverse supplier pool of folks to use. So what we have done now is we've had 2 years experience in this, and we are still very much growing we embrace it, but we are finding a bit of a stumbling and challenge with our location. As I said, we're on the Maryland Eastern Shore. When we're seeking to have that construction, now as my dear Mark looking for construction and distribution equipment, we're finding a little bit of an obstacle with the Bay Bridge. So, if anybody is interested in coming to the shore, we would be very happy to speak with you. We also, at this point, lack a registration on our website, but it is a fourth quarter initiative that we want to do that. All we have available on the website at this point is just a copy of the brochure saying that we are participating with the Minority Business Enterprise Initiative with our purchasing contact. So there is a way to reach us, and we are trying to be more reachable by putting that link on our website. That said, I guess we've had 2 years of actual reporting with the Commission. Our very first year of reporting, we were able to actually have 4% of our spend in minority. And our second year of reporting, we were doubling that at 8%. But frankly, a lot of that were vendors that were in our system already. So it wasn't so much of an outreach, trying to find a new opportunity. So that's what we're looking for, and we're going to be working on that. And Maryland Forum, to a newcomer to the initiative, very helpful. You know, where we're able to actually learn from some of the things that they've been able to do and how they've been able to reach out. So with that, my turn.
Great, thank you. And I'm here representing Potomac Edison. I am also from Pennsylvania, so I support all the 6 states that we serve. And in Potomac Edison, when we started tracking for the MOU, we leveled out about 5% of the spend from Potomac Edison's budget was with minority women-owned businesses. And again, for third quarter, we can report that we were 20.45% for minority women-owned businesses. And again, like Ronnie said, we are lagging in the service-disabled veteran area significantly. For Potomac Edison, we are also in a reliability for service for transmission lines. We're upgrading all of those, and that's a major initiative for us. So we're looking for companies that can do line clearing, concrete pads, those sort of things that would support us in those initiatives. And now switching back to the overall panel, the MOU has specific components that we would like to talk about or have questions. And they are certification, our internal program, external, vendor registration, our bid process, and subcontracting. And it was touched on very briefly. If somebody would like to start out, certification. Why do we ask for certification?
One of the reasons that we ask for certification is because we want to be sure that we are in fact doing business with a diverse business. Because credibility is everything to us. Being able to stand by that. It's a requirement in the MOU. We can't report any dollars from a diverse vendor unless we have a certification. I can say one more thing. The certification also helps you develop your business by, you would be getting your certifications through a number of different business advocacy groups like Maryland DC Council or WeBank, one of those sort of organizations. And then that provides you with a network that you really need to push forward.
Are there any questions? I mean, I have a series of questions I can continue to ask. We try to think of what might be of interest to you. But if anybody has a question, please raise your hand and let us know, or we'll just continue. Communicating our programs. A little different for all of us. I'm in 6 states. Jay's in Pennsylvania. So we're not here on the ground in Maryland. You're on the Eastern Shore. How do you communicate your programs and the suppliers that you meet at events like this throughout your company? Laura, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk about this for a minute. If anybody wants to add, can jump in behind me. The first year I took over the supplier diversity program at Washington Gas, which was about 3 years ago now. First thing we did was to build a supplier diversity website. We've made several improvements to it since then with online vendor registration, because we found as we were going to events, we came home with stacks of business cards this high. Didn't add any value, so we've worked with our IT department to put together a vendor registration site. We support all of the local advocacy programs. So we do business in Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia. And we come to and sponsor a lot of events so we can get out there and get the word out about our company and our program. And if anybody else has anything to add to that?
Yes, I just wanted to touch real briefly on that certification piece. It's really simple. When I always say certification, I think certification, it reduces your marketing costs, increases your competitive advantage. It's that simple, because we're looking at the certification database to identify vendors, and you have people in organizations like us on the panel going to these respective databases, marketing your companies and the organization. What I said earlier about registering the database, we are a nationwide company. So the website, comcast.com/supplier diversity. Don't take these registration sites lightly. I've seen profiles that folks will just put their company name or their address. Put a profile in there, because if I'm looking to source an opportunity in Maryland, I want to see some of your clients potentially, some of your revenues, your certifications, and some of the projects you worked on. So filled out the registration portal, make sure it's a robust profile and you really can identify what you do to get you in front of the decision makers.
Jay, if I can add to that, I try to explain to suppliers that I meet that our registration portal is basically your electronic business card. That's all it is to us. You're not pre-qualified, you're not qualified at that point, you're just registered. And so that 6 months or 9 months down the line, when we've got a buyer who's asking us to source a supplier for them, we can go back into that database and identify you as that commodity or service. I ask you to be honest and true when you fill that form out. Do not put a dollar for your revenue, because we're given sometimes 15 minutes to try to add somebody to a bid list. And when we're looking at that list and we've got 3 companies to look at, and one gives me $2.5 million and somebody gives me $15, guess who's not going to be included on that bid list? I'm not going to go out and search your website to see if you truly are the company that would be best to add to that bid. So you've got to be honest with us. How about you, Lisa? And how do you share that information from your website?
Well, as I shared, our fourth quarter, we go ahead and put the registration link on there. So at this point, we are just simply collecting the business cards, going back. And in addition to that, Chop Tank is really a very, very lean company in that, as I said, we're a cooperative. So with that said, the consumer is the owner, and we're always watching costs, and with that leanness of our management and our employee staff, we wear many hats. That said, we don't have a centralized, diverse program department, but we do have all the managers who are actively buying. And when we come back with the business cards, if it's an applicable to that department, that's where we take that back. This is who we met. And unfortunately, with the economy slowdown, we haven't had a lot of big projects to have the big bid processes that we would like, and I'm sure you would like. But I will add to that, just a little plug right now, in that we are going to be, in 2014, putting up a new regional service center in Salisbury, Maryland. So that is definitely an opportunity that we're going to be looking for. And if maybe not the prime contractor, there may be opportunities to be a second tier position spent on there, with perhaps partnering with other contractors in the area that could perhaps help us with that initiative.
Perfect lead-in for the next topic, and that is subcontracting. There are times when we as a utility need to go to the big guy. Ronnie talked about it with the meters. How do you drive companies or make the introductions to your primes that you meet at events like this? Anybody want to take that? How do you get them into your supply chain or pre-bid meetings?
Well, at Comcast, we're not as public as states, where they post bids on websites and respective things. Everything is invitation, if you will. So, our Tier 2 program, we just rolled it out last year, and we reported in excess of, 140 million in Tier 2 spend. So, we're at a stage right now where we're making those introductions, and knowing who some of our major primes are is advantageous to you. For example, Sienna, you do a lot of our cell backhaul stuff in construction, which is critical for some of our Comcast business. So looking at 2014, we're going to facilitate more partnerships and make more introductions. But right now, the primes are just reporting their Tier 2 spend, and moving forward, I think I want to make some more engagements down in Maryland.
And I can share from Potomac Edison that we've outsourced our staffing to a managed service provider, Pontoon. So when I go out and I meet suppliers who want to have IT staffing or just anything along those lines, where we're bringing somebody in as a contractor, they have to come in through Pontoon. So we try to bring them to events such as this and partner with us so that we can make those introductions, because they are quasi First Energy employees acting on our behalf. So it's how we try to do it.
Mr. Burks, your tier one suppliers for Comcast. They're invited strictly from your list on your site. So if an opportunity comes, you go on the site and then you invite folks to propose or bid on opportunities with Comcast.
Correct. Based on vetting and your profile, definitely, yes.
But you don't post your bids on your website?
No, we don't post bids, no.
And one of the other things that I should mention is a lot of us had done some second tier before the MOU, but the MOU actually tells us that we need to have second tier programs. So all of us have been developing that second tier reporting, educating the prime suppliers, putting stronger language in our terms and conditions to say, you know, we want you to do more business with diverse suppliers. And it's also become part of the evaluation of your bid, of the bid. What are you going to do? How much of this project's going to, do you think we can sub out to diverse suppliers? So that's very important. And by invitation, I don't want to let that go by. I believe that all of us do by invitational, those publish the opportunities. So you got to come to us to figure out if you've got potential in doing business with the companies and where those opportunities might be.
So, I'm sorry, Toby, one other thing I wanted to add on to that is, not only do we support all of our local advocacy groups and highly encourage the vendors that we meet to register on our website, we also, when sourcing events come up, tap into any of the advocacy groups' databases looking for vendors. We make every attempt to identify them. Although we would encourage people to be on the websites, we go as far to do shout outs. I know I probably wear out my welcome with Wayne, but he's always stepped up to the plate, always trying to help me find diverse vendors. We do the same with the Maryland DC Minority Supplier Development Council. We're very appreciative for that. So we tap into every possible resource that we can think of, and enjoy attending these events. It's always nice to have meeting face to face. One thing that we've discussed many times, though, one thing I want to be, because it was in this part of our notes that we put together, is one thing that I would like to ask anybody that's, and I'm sure this is across the board, that gets invited to bid, there is no shame that if when you get that RFP and you've been invited to bid, and for some reason it could be manpower, or it could be a shortage of anything, please make sure that you always turn back that, you know, there's an intent to bid form. I know there is on our RFPs. I don't know if everybody else has it. You know, I don't intend to bid. If you'd like to include an explanation, that's much better. But it does not leave a good taste in anybody's mouth if you don't at least communicate back. If one's come back with a logical explanation, hey, it was over my head, I don't have the subcontractors to do this, that is very well received. And that will, you know, make them think next time when that opportunity comes up to include you once again. People that do not respond to the intent to bid, or respond to the intent to bid, say I'm going to bid, and then they don't meet that deadline. I hear about it, and it does not reflect well. If for some reason before that due date for the RFP, something comes up, simply communicate with them. So you keep that good reputation.
Charlie?
Hi, I just wanted to communicate too, in addition to the website, make sure your website is up to date. Because private sector companies are inviting you to bid, sometimes we're looking at you and you don't know it. And not just supplier diversity people, buyers and users terms of your services, I mean, we might push you forward, and the person says, we don't think they're qualified. Why? We look at their website. They're not really offering what we're looking for. You might have had some opportunities to have some successful contract awards, but you didn't update your website for the past year, so you get knocked off the opportunity. So know that people are looking at you and you don't know it a lot of times.
We need to wrap up, and I do appreciate everybody being here, and again, we can move across the hall if there's additional interest, but in wrapping up, what is one last thing that we would like to leave with the audience? And I know that when we talked about driving you to our websites. If you can just go to our websites, do some research on us before you call us. Lisa, do you have a last comment? Anything you'd like to share?
Well, I think it was where Mr. Flynn opened it up by saying, educate yourself about our business, what we are doing, what we have active. As I said, we've got a new building that we're going to be putting up. Understand the business and just be aware of also our service territory.
Yes, one thing I'd like to end on is to make sure, and this is only my personal advice, when you come to events like this, remember, and I'm terrible about names, so please forgive me, but make sure that you make a lasting impression on them, and provide them with a capability statement, sometimes preferably with a picture on it, because I might associate back, oh yes, that's the individual I met that does this. Also, have good, effective business cards, because sometimes someone might get back to the office and friend, what did they do again? So if they're not well constructed, that wouldn't be a plus either. And on the sites, I can't resound that comment enough. I have had many vendors that I wanted to include in bids, and my business units or my buyers go to that site, they look at it and say, I'm not even sure what their core capabilities are. Focus it, celebrate it, highlight it, so they know what you do and who you are.
Ronnie? Say, complete the registration, complete that profile. Every single thing. We frequently have vendors that don't want to put what their annual revenue is. Well, if you didn't put it down there, we don't know what you're capable of doing. We got to do that.
I would encourage you to, aside from learning the industry, I would encourage you to also learn and understand your own capabilities in working with a utility company. When you learn about a utility company, you'll understand that what kind of projects they have coming up, what type of issues they're facing from a commission perspective, from a regulatory perspective, and from a consumer perspective. And your company and your business model has to match what they're offering and what they need. Don't come to them selling, you sell handmade dolls. They need a transmission line. It's, I've had companies come to me and ask me, why aren't the utility responding to my call? And I have to tell them it's because they don't offer what they need right now. But they might need it. But if you learn their industry, you'll know when. So make sure you know what you offer so that when they need it, you're ready to give it to them.
I'll be brief. Just be patient. We have a lot of things on our plate. And, I'll probably get a lot of business cards. And I get back in the office, I get a lot of emails, and then a lot of follow-up emails 24 hours later. It's patience. Things take time. We have over 130,000 employees. Things take time, especially with Comcast and some of these large organizations. So patience.
I'd like to thank our panel for being here this morning to share some insights on our industry.
And for waiting for
Thank you.
Thank you.